The Wharton Club of Africa, also known as WCA, brought together investors from across the world, providing a networking platform from a cross-section of sectors.
Well, WCA has been actually very important for our organization and myself individually. I went to Wharton Business School, and being part of this organization has been very beneficial. WCA has members all across the world. I think over 1,000 members. So not just in Africa, but also for investors in Europe, in Asia, who are interested in focus in Africa. WCA also organized an investment trip to Asia, where we were able to meet with different investors all across Asia, not just in China, but also in Hong Kong, Singapore, India. And that was also very beneficial for the members in collaborating on how to work together to invest in Africa.
Traditionally, we were used to have conferences about Africa outside Africa. And now, the good thing is, when you talk about Africa, you have to be in Africa. You have to speak to the African leaders, to the decision makers, and this locality part of the process is key to sustainable growth within Africa itself.
But what are some of the key trends driving investment in Africa?
Look, I think over the last few years, what the world has seen is that on the telecom side, it's been incredible growth in Africa, and people are beginning to understand from the developing world that there is actually, from the developed countries, that there is actually real money here. The mobile usage in Africa is incredible. I think the outreach of mobile companies is still, I think, at the lower end. So that's a massive growth area for Africa. But I think one of the trends that I see in Africa really is Africans taking control of their own capital and of their own resources, and managing their own destiny in terms of the economic future. And that's a very exciting thing. And I think that should give international investors a lot of confidence, because you now have Africans who can manage to first world standards and secure the investment.
And really, if you look at Africa and the real growth story, I think you're going to find infrastructure development, engineering projects is really where there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And that also creates ancillary opportunities, where when you have roads being built, rail being built, you can transport goods easier and also more efficiently. So we focus on infrastructure and engineering, and also natural resources. And that's where a lot of investment capital you're seeing is flowing into Africa.
Strengthening infrastructure traversing through various countries, be it road, rail, or even system software, are some of the critical development needed to boost cross-border trade and edge the continent closer to becoming a unified trading bloc.
An upgrade to the soft structure has to happen. Cross-border is key. I mean, you might, okay, you've moved the tariffs, for example, but the non-tariff barrier is an issue. So when I move a container out of Mombasa to Uganda, I just want to make sure it goes smooth. So technology can play a major part. There are fantastic examples of proper region integration, along with the supply chain integration happening around the world. I think East Africa can upgrade its infrastructure in that sense, along with the traditional infrastructure of a bigger port. I know Lamu is being built, a new port in Mombasa, two terminals at Kenya Airport is happening. But at the game, you know what? You are as good as your neighbor. So if you upgrade here, you need to upgrade in Uganda. You need to upgrade in Tanzania, because the customer looks at the total supply chain end to end. So you might be very efficient here, but then if you're stuck at the destination, then the whole purpose of the whole exercise, is not achieved.
For a long time, most African countries have looked away from the African shores for partners for trade, and really Africa contains pretty much whatever we need. I mean, I think it was Sheikh Anta Diop that wrote the Federal States of Africa talking to this point. And the legislation is there, the organizations are there, but we still haven't focused to deliberately, and it has to be a deliberate effort to look at other African countries and how we can increase trade with each other. I think meetings like this help, because we then have networks of African business people or whatever that will go back and connect with each other and start trading on that very basic level.
Access to energy for these industrialists and proper regulatory frameworks are other major challenges.
I think it depends. As an investor, there's two ways to look at it. If you're an investor in the energy sector, it's a great opportunity. If you're an investor in other sectors, it's a great concern, because obviously the main problems in most African countries is reliable energy and affordable energy. So usually what you find is that most big companies would have to create independent power generation situations for themselves, which obviously leads to higher startup costs. So that's a concern from an investor that's outside of the energy sector. on the other side, if you are an investor in the energy sector, there's a great opportunity to provide independent power, and most African countries are now legislating to move towards independent power producers.
The key challenges that we've experienced in terms of working on the projects we have in West Africa, and some that we're trying to do here in East Africa, in Ethiopia, for example, is where the project or the opportunity changes. So the government says one thing, and then a few months later it actually changes. So you actually lose several months lead time, and that's why it takes so long to get projects or to get companies set up in certain countries. So that's one big challenge, where the government doesn't really know what they want to do. So they're just giving something a chance, and then they realize that's not what they want to do. They change it, and then you don't really find out until it's too late. So there needs to be more interaction, more communication amongst the government and the investors.
As the average annual economic growth rate for African countries pendulums between 5 and 6%, there are numerous opportunities yet to be tapped. Forums such as the Wharton Club for Africa will play a critical role in harnessing these.
My view is that the future is very positive. I think there is a realization now that, you know, you've seen the emergence of China, you've seen the emergence of India. The question is, when is Africa's turn? And I think it's coming. I think in terms of the talent pool in Africa is increasing significantly, and that is critical because people talk about Africa rising. Well, Africa rising has to be for the Africans. The Africans must benefit, otherwise the development will not take hold, it will not take root, and it will not be sustainable. But I am absolutely confident. I focus on Africa completely because I think that's where the future lies.